Coach, I've got three questions in the chat. I'll read them out one by
Yeah.
one for you.
Yeah.
The first question is, I've got to make sure I pronounce the name correctly. Was Bill Ansperger using more
Ansperger.
simulated pressures or creepers? Did you have a preference and why?
Simulated pressures or actually full blow? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay. I would fairly early in the game, almost any game, I'd blitz everybody I had. It doesn't do you any good to simulate blitz if you're not going to blitz. So I wanted to be the first guy. In fact, that's all they talked about me really mostly is that, oh, he's blitz crazy. And I exaggerated it myself. I talked it up because I wanted people to think I was going to blitz every down. And come think of it, I probably should have. But I would load, I wouldn't cock the gun and never shoot it. If you're just messing around up there all day long with people and floating around, and pretty soon they're going to say, hell, they don't ever come. And if you do come, just hot read it right now to the back. And I prefer the safer way of doing it. But the only way it can be effective is if they know you'll send everybody. And when you send everybody, then you lose that last guy back there that you can play around with in the coverage. If they got a really great receiver, you can help him in fire zone. You can help the guy that's got him. But if you're going zero blitz is what we called it, and everybody had their guy and everybody else was blitzing. And the advantage of that is it's like playing checkers. If you get the guy down to where he's got three guys left and you got four, you can trade him off and you're going to be the last guy left. You're going to win the game. And in that blitz, you send them where they got to protect with those backs, or you're going to get a no touch. And a no touch is going to mess the offense hates that more than anything. When they got quarterback's got a guy on him right now, he got either grounded or he's going to make a mistake. So if you got that situation where they have to keep everybody in to protect, and then you just put the add rule in, the add rule being you got the back. And if he blocks the blitzer, then you run, you hug, and you blitz too. So you're maybe 2 steps behind what the first blitzer would be, but you're going to get the same effect pressure-wise. So what you're doing is you're blitzing more they can block, because eventually someone's got to have the ball in their hand. It's usually the quarterback if it's a pass, and that's what you're hoping for in the blitz, unless you're flattened out in the run blitz. But if you're looking to just overload them, you add, and whoever your guy blocks, you blitz. So if they do that motion, a wide receiver back in the backfield to pick up the extra safety blitz, you the guy that's got the wide receiver, you blitz when he picks up the safety, and away you go. So I love that, but it just wasn't safe. And I was a stat man. I wanted to win the stats too. So I would load the gun always. But then I worked a lot with our players on just walking around in the field and never being where you're going to end up to blitz from. Never come from where you're going to blitz from. And then after being on video long enough where I had too much of that, I would say, act like you're going to leave, but come back to where you started from again. So that the one thing that I would say in all that, they have coaches too, and they're going to be studying you. And once you get on video with the tendency, or somebody hurts you in the game with the tendency, you can see that he prepared and he knew by your alignment that he had a chance of being successful. You want to get out of that. You want to make sure that you got more than one way of doing it. You may not have to change until you catch a game where you're on that video enough times where he can see something. For instance, stack. You get this right here. Bunch, stack, wide receivers. There's the ball. There's the guard. There's the tackle. And you get three great receivers here, and they're all in a stack. Well, they're going to do all kind of crazy stuff out there. How are you going to cover that when you're in man? Zone's pretty easy, but if you ever want to get any pressure at all, you're going to have to play some man. And what I would do here, I always had the defensive backfield coach have at least two ways that we're going to cover that. And we would have it, it was just let's call them A and B. We're going to do A this week. And that would be, he takes one, he doubled two, and he would take three. So if we got on video against bunch 3 times in a particular game, we'd never do it the same way the next week. Never. So that's what I'm talking about, disguise, and have enough ways to adjust that once they get a read on you, they can't use that. It's just like getting interest on your money in the bank, man. If they know you're going to be somewhere, even a bad quarterback's going to beat you because he'll get the ball where it's got to get, and you'll get beat. So that's another one of my philosophies of defense. You got to have more than one way of doing it, and you may not change for 5 games because you never got on video of doing it where they could see it and say, oh, all we got to do is motion this guy over and doing that and that. Well, when that happens, and they're coming right into where you're trapped or whatever. So back to the question on which blitz did I prefer? I far preferred zone blitz. And that's why it's still, hell, we're talking about 1983. So that's 17 and 24 is 27, 37, 41. That's 40. That's a long time. And there's more of it. It ain't less. There's more of it. And the reason why is it's a safer way to do it. It's not as guaranteed as the max blitz because you're adding and you're going to send more than they can block. But if you make one mistake on that one, I used to carry, when I'd speak in clinics, I'd carry about 8 show examples opening my discussion on the zone blitz, and it would all be guys running 3-yard routes and 4-yard behind the line of scrimmage routes and going 80 yards for a touchdown because everybody was blitzing out everywhere else, and you didn't have anybody back left with a set of eyes that could go over there and at least slow the guy down where pursuit could get in there and drag him down someplace, and you could play again. And that's all defense is about, getting to play another down. So anything else?
Yes, Coach, I've got several questions. They're typing them in. So the next question is how much autonomy, if any, did you give the players to call pressures and games? Also, what percentage did you like to blitz?
I probably was the highest percentage blitzer when I was coaching. We would usually run for the season maybe 35% of the time. I was still a defend the goal line coach. I didn't want to see him get across our goal line. If they got down there, that's why we worked so hard on red zone. I wanted to have to take 3. Our guys got really good at red zone coverage, and I would have liked for people to think that I was a 65% blitz guy, because I think that puts a little doubt in the quarterback's mind. And I think the biggest weapon that a defensive team has is creating doubt in the quarterback's mind. If you can show him something that he hasn't seen in practice all day long, you're probably going to limit his effectiveness for at least a while. But I think that a blitz still has to be a surprise. It's a surprise attack. And if they know you're blitzing, they're going to have some success against it. But if they're not sure, hey, is this just a fake or is this really coming? And then that's why you got to spend a lot of time with all that alignment and assignment stuff that I had from basic defense. Because if you can't get them into passing situations, it's harder to blitz. And you got to be able to play defense, and that in itself, you still got to be able to attack. We would move the line a lot. We wouldn't sit there for them. And our guys loved it. They loved to play our scheme, but we would give them different looks, but they wouldn't be blitzes.
The next question is, how did your coverage and stall progression work? Did you coach spot drop zone? Did you coach that first, or did you go straight to quarters underneath zone?
What I did, this is something that all defensive coordinators got to do. I would outline an installation schedule based off of the meeting time that I had. And that's, I don't care where you're coaching, you've got a schedule of a certain amount of meetings that you can get in, and you've got a certain amount of defense that you want to get in. And I would not overload it one way or the other. I would try to keep it balanced going through there. I knew what I was going to feature calling through the season. So those defenses would come in earlier. But in terms of pressure, I would always be installing a man pressure and a zone pressure each installation period, one of each. So we stayed balanced going through there. Now, it wasn't too long because we ran so many more zone blitzes than we did man, but there was going to be a place for all of them. And I wanted to get them in early enough that one of the advantages of coaching professionally, a lot of the guys, it was, they'd been through it. But still in all, there are a lot of guys that it's their first time through it. And you can't go to step 21 without getting them from 1 to 20, or they're going to be lost. So I usually started pretty basic and would balance the blitzes as they went in. And I would keep track of how many times I had scripted each defense in practice, how many times I'd got it actually on video for us. I wanted to have everything in there before we left training camp.
Thank you. The next question is, you mentioned mental toughness for corners, where a mistake is a 60-yard play and a touchdown. Have you ever had players struggle with this, and how have you got them to improve on being able to forget the last play?
I think every player that was ever a meaningful player, that ever had a feeling for his teammates, they've all, if they played corner, you're talking to a guy that played there for 14 years. And when you line up and you look around, on 90% of the snaps, your nearest teammate's about 15 yards away from you. And you talk about being out there on an island. That's where you are. And you understand the responsibility that you're carrying. And you've been in a huddle with the guys. You've been in training camps, you've been in life, and you don't want to let them down. And if a guy runs by you for 50 yards, you may have the greatest set of defensive ends in the league. They can't do nothing. Now, coaching, I would always say, well, get in there and sack the quarterback before he throws it, and then they can't run by the corner. But that was my part of trying to share the blame as a coach. But as a player, that guy's your guy, and that you don't want to let your teammates down. Everybody's worked their ass off to get out there and play. So how do you handle it when it happens? Again, it's exactly what I started from from minute one on this talk. I want them to know that I'm on their side. I'm only there to make them better. I'm not there to call them names. I'm not there to say they're worthless. I'm there to tell them how they can get better. And I was in a good position from the point that anything that could possibly happen to them had happened to me. I mean, you think about it, I took over 1,000 snaps for 14 years. Well, that's a lot of snaps, but something bad, it was nothing new that I hadn't seen. And so I could tell the guy from the bottom of my heart, hey, man, it's tough. You're going to play the next down. I said, he'll never get that route on you again. We ain't going to let it happen. I just support him. And the best thing that I try to do with guys until they just showed they weren't good enough to do at the position that he was playing. And because of whatever happened, that's who we had for that series of games, or maybe for the year. And I would just, make it as good for him and give him as much help as I could. But I would never, never bench a guy. I didn't want to do that. And that was simply from going through it all myself. And I know how it feels when you get beat. And if you're a competitor, and 99% of the players that stay in the game long enough to be with you guys, to want to play football with you guys, they're competitors. And by God, if they get beat, they want a chance to come back and even up a score. And you tell them you're going to show them how you can do it, and we're going to get even. And that was the way I approached it. Was this is something that happens. One of my favorite sayings was, "Some days are diamonds, some days are stones." And Carnell Lake, to this day, when he sees me, he'll say, "Sometimes you get the bear, and sometimes the bear gets you." Because when he made a mistake, that was the first thing I said to him, and other coaches had hollered at him, and he said, "I'll never forget that." Well, it was just part of the way I approached things. I approached coaching from this standpoint. I don't believe the player doesn't want to play well. I don't believe he doesn't want to do everything you're trying to get him to do. I don't believe that. I believe he wants to have the girls like him, man. He wants to be the star at the dance that night. I think he's playing because he loves the game and he wants to play and play well. So I want to try to give him a chance. Well, if I shake his confidence even more and get a lot of acrimony, poor language, I don't think that helps the situation. You need, hey, sometimes we all need a hug, man. And I've been there. That's how I handled it. I've seen other coaches who were wonderfully successful who were, they'd put you on a bench in a minute, man. You weren't playing the next week. And I just didn't think that was the way to do it.
Coach, I've got two more questions, and then we'll let you go because it's coming up nearly up to the 2 hour mark. So the next question is,
I'm proud of that. I didn't know.
I know,
I
I know.
told
When we spoke, you said, oh, maybe 30, maybe 40 minutes, but
Yeah.
hey,
Well,
Coach, how did
I told you I had enough information for a week.
Coach, how did you like to structure your weekly game plan during the season in terms of how you studied film, broke down certain situations? What were the key things you looked for in a film study?
Well, the first thing I didn't do is so when I first started coaching, we had to break down the film, and which is probably what a lot of you guys have to do. We took all the games off. We'd take them off on Thursday and Friday, and so that we could get them run into the computer and get any tendencies. That was the earlier days of the artificial intelligence. But Uh, I found out once I started calling the games as the coordinator and calling defenses, I couldn't look at a play uh, of the team before. And by that time, we had a guy who would break down the film for us and get that fed into the computers. And I never looked at anybody but the team we were playing that week. And I'll tell you why. Here's what I found was a danger. I'd be on the sideline and it'd be 3rd down and 8, and we'd be ahead by 3 points, and they would have 3rd down and 8 on their 48, so that one more first down or one completion was going to tie the damn game up or give them the lead in the game in the 4th quarter. And I'm over there trying to come up with the law of average, what I'd seen from them, and their favorite protection in this situation, who was having the best day that day. These are the things that were going through my mind. And I'd start saying, well, no, wait a minute. Was that this guy that I remember that I had this all set that I was going to call? Or was that the team that we're playing next week? So first time that happened, which was very, very, very early in my career, I said, I will never look at another opponent other than the one that we're playing that week when I'm calling the game. So the answer to that is I would get that game done with, win, lose, tie, whatever. Not too many ties anymore. But I would then start Sunday. We played a game in our league most of the time. Grade the film and get the players in and out on Monday. And then it was just thrash away. And I would literally, it was nothing for me to look at 20 games on a team. I'd go back 3 years if it wasn't a coordinator that I didn't feel like I knew. But I mean, just that's one thing about being a coach, and I'm sure you've all found it out. You don't pay any attention to what time it is. You got checklist stuff you want to look and check, you want to check. And mostly I was looking, I knew what my base defense was going to be. And that's what I believe. That's why I told you guys from the beginning, you get what you believe. And if you got to adjust it, but have it that it's your stuff. You can talk it. You can fix everything that goes wrong with it, or you at least have an answer for a player that comes up that's getting his ass blocked every play. And here's why, and here's what's happening, and here's what you got to do to beat it. And to do that, you got to know the defense. So that's why I said that. And I knew that that wasn't going to change that much, but I was looking for areas to attack with the blitzes. And that means that you have to look at a ton of film. And the thing about coaching is not, I don't care how many machines they get you. If you're going to call a game, you got to look. You got to look and get a feel for what they do. And, you can get a printout and it'll give you 6 pages of 1st and 10, so you know a lot of percentages in there. But I want to look at that daggum situation in the 4th quarter when they were down 6 points and they got the ball on their own 18-yard line and they got to get down there and score to win the game. That field goal does them no good. What's he going to do? And I would look at it. I go after the film and look at it until I had in my mind what I thought he was going to try to do. Sometimes what I thought wasn't what he did, but that's the way I went about it. And I tell you what, it helped more than anything. Anybody that's called defenses, I don't care what level you're coaching, when you call a bad one and it blows up on you and it costs your team a football game, and it's going to happen to you because nobody's perfect. And sometimes you can be in the perfect call and it blows up and you lose the game anyhow. But I wouldn't be able to sleep at night, and I couldn't do it when I was a player, when I was a corner. We went back to that question of how do you get a guy out of it? He'll get out of it with time, and you got to prop him up a little bit through it because it makes you sick. But if I made a mistake or I just called a defense that didn't work, I wouldn't sleep that night, and I would have eventually what helped me more than anything was, look, coach, this is your profession. This is what you chose to do. You looked at every damn piece of film you could look at. You prepared a game plan in your mind that was the best way for you to go after these guys. And you said in this situation, in this part of this game, or in that part of the field, this is what you were going to do this week. You prepared for that. And guess what? It didn't work. So I could accept that in my own mind. And that's one reason that I would say that to people who are calling the defense or calling the offense for that matter. I prepared. I didn't just get one of those magic 8 balls you can get at the 5 and dime and shake it and it says run off tackle. I prepared a thought plan and I checked my guys and their guys and gave them what I thought was the best matchup I could give them. And I wish I would have been right more than I was, but at least was I had a reason. And I still didn't sleep at night, but I slept the next night.
Coach, can I pick you up on something that you said, which I think is really important? You said if I didn't know the offensive coordinator enough or I wanted to, how big do you think it is in the game of football to know the person on the other sideline who's calling the plays?
I don't think it matters too much, except the fact of experience, coach, experience on the job is a tremendous advantage because, for instance, if all those formation personnel packages that I was putting up there, I'm just trying to show the guys that what you got to get ready for. You're going to get different sets, and people aren't going to huddle, and they're going to motion, and they're going to shift, and your guys have to have an answer for that, and you have got to have given them some. You may not have worked on it for a while because they may not have shown it, but you got to have some starting place that you can say, here's what we got to do to defend this. And I think that the more that you have been exposed to, and that's nothing but experience and how many years you've been in the game, it's going to benefit you because you're going to, one of these games you're going to get in there and somebody's going to have an advantage that he's picked up on you, or maybe their team is just a little bit stronger in one area than you are and you don't really know how to get it patched up quick enough to help you guys. But you're going to run into situations where other people took advantage of some things. Well, if you're diligent, you won't guess that this might happen again. You can bet on it that whatever worked against you one week, you're going to see for about a month, pal. And you got to get an answer for it. And I tell you what, it's still just 11 on 11, and you can take away anything. Now, you may be a little more vulnerable somewhere else, but until they figure that out, you're going to stop what the hell got you in trouble. So do I think it's important to know what the other guy is? Only from an experience standpoint. I think what's more important is your familiarity with the type of offense that they're running and with the people that he has. If you're a fighter and you're in the ring against a guy that's got a killer right hook, you better keep moving away from his right side because he's going to tag you and it's going to be over with. So if you're playing against a great passer with a great receiver, you better defend that guy or he's going to take you out.
Thank you, Coach. The final question for you is, Coach, how did you make sure your red zone coverage was so good? What were the key differences versus coverage in the rest of the field?
Well, the key difference was I double zoned with the corners a lot. I just didn't worry about the flat, but that's why I didn't call it very far out on the field because pretty soon you get in in a place where anatomically you can't do it. But you have an advantage defensively there because the field is constricted. and they don't have the room to run away from your defending backs. They don't have the way to outmaneuver your linebackers. And what we did, once they got the understanding of the areas of the field that they were responsible for and what they had to take care of in terms of stack and crossing routes, which you get a ton of down there. We did that through walkthrough. We didn't try to do that full speed. We slowly showed them, hey, this is what you do if they do that, and here's how you match it, and you use this guy to pick it up coming out on that end. But we stayed and covered max the field in super passing situation. We might even drop the nose back into the middle to pick up another defender in there. Because the quarterback ain't going to go anywhere. If it's, say the ball's on an 8-yard line, he's going to have a hard time scrambling in the end zone unless you're manned up somewhere and everybody's got their back to him. Which, if that was the case, I was going to blitz everybody, and if he got out of that, he got out of that. But I think the red zone, it has to be especially attention paid to it because it's such a critical part of the game. And you got to use the field to your advantage. And that's the way I used it. I used the corner had the flat and he had the deep outside zone. He had them both. And he would break on the guy going to the flat and get his ass down with a 2.5, 3-yard gain. If he used proper technique, we're going back to technique and eyes and all that stuff that we talked about. But we spent an inordinate amount of time, I suppose, on possible routes that you get in the red zone. And particularly the crossing, the stack, the bunch, those kinds of things that you leave people open and they just catch it and walk in. Well, we saw it in the Super Bowl. I mean, you see it every year. In the most critical games of the year, somebody will be wide open in the flat. And you got to keep that from happening and make them earn it. But that's why our red zone was good. Our players knew where they had to be. They knew their alignment, they knew their assignment, and they knew their keys, and they executed. And was it any great scheme? No, it wasn't. But it was preparation and their ability athletically to adjust to what was filling up. All we're doing is filling up space down there. Let's face it. And familiarity with the routes and how they matched. And how do you do that? Well, you draw them up on the card and you take them out on the field and you walk them through it, and then you run it in practice, and pretty soon those things repeat. That area of the field repeats. So when you're spending 12 good minutes on red zone passing, you can do that every week, and you're getting better every week because you're going to get the same type of routes.
Thank you, Coach. Coach, I'm going to thank you now on behalf of everybody that's been on the call. I'm going to pass it back to Coach Woodson and let him sign off. But I'm eternally grateful for the time you've given us tonight, Coach. Coach Woodson.
I'm thankful to the guys for having me. I enjoyed it. Thanks a lot, Tree.
Coach, I definitely appreciate it. Maybe one day we can get you to recite the night before Christmas like you used to do on Christmas Eve every year for the team.
Yeah, that only takes 5 minutes. I'd be happy to do that. I still do it, Ron.
Oh, I know you can, Coach. I know you can. You know what? I'm a little jealous because I'm 58, and I got glasses, and you're way older, and you still have great vision. Genetics.
I never could see is the answer to that.
No, but I just want to say I appreciate it, Coach, for coming on and sharing your knowledge with everybody on the call. Thank you.
Hey, Rod Woodson, I love you, man.
Love you, Coach. Appreciate everybody.
Yeah, guys, I need to be selfish here and take this moment. This whole thing started with me being introduced to Coach Woodson And then Coach Woodson asks Coach Dick LeBeau, would he do this? And you've just witnessed what this sport does for us, how coaches and players, how our relationships build and how the network builds and how the family builds. And I love it. I love it. It's amazing. And I was very, very pleased to hear that last minute there. And long may this clan grow and we continue to be a family. So thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate all of you. And we'll catch up in a month's time. Thank you,
Good
Coach
luck,
LeBeau.
guys. Good luck, baby.